I'm Lucy.
And I'm Jennifer.
You're listening to Everything I Know About.
Each week, we share everything we know about a new topic, equipped with some internet research and a little too much exposure to pop culture.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, everyone.
Today, we are going to be talking about reality TV. We are both very excited about this topic and have been waiting some time to cover it because we did want to start with our feelings about the most recent season of The Bachelorette, Jen's season. And I just actually finished watching that last night because I had to get caught up. But for the majority of the conversation, we also wanted to dive into reality TV much more broadly and use Jen's season as the jumping off point into researching and discussing some of the history of reality TV and how it's morphed into the giant universe that it's become today. Jennifer looked into how reality TV actually works in terms of the casting, prompting, and of course, editing, and how everything that the producers do are manipulating the story that we're told.
Yeah, then we're going to get into more of the psychology of why we like reality TV in the first place and what makes it so addictive and keeps us coming back season after season, even though, frankly, all of these reality TV shows are different flavors of the same thing. And then we will wrap up the conversation looking at how American-produced reality TV differs from reality TV in other countries.
I'm so excited to talk to you about The Bachelorette. You've watched the whole thing, right?
I'm halfway through the finale. And I know that there was some drama because I keep on flicking past TikToks that were like Jen's season of The Bachelorette, the most horrible finale we've seen. Meaning I just saw her crying a bunch and stuff. So I'm very interested, but I don't actually know what happened.
Okay, well, I'm going to spoil it for you so we can talk about it. It had been spoiled for me too, because when you don't watch it with everybody, I feel like it's inevitably going to get spoiled since it's all over social media.
I do know that she's not happy. That part.
Yeah. So I had seen already that she had picked Devin and that it had not worked out. They broke up a month after they got engaged and the finale of the show.
Oh, so sad.
Yeah. So I knew that, but I had to actually watch, of course. And let's start from the beginning. So the reason I was so excited about this season of The Bachelorette is because obviously the lead is Asian American. She's the first Asian American lead ever in this whole franchise. I did not grow up watching The Bachelorette or The Bachelor, and my first exposure to it was actually The Golden Bachelor.
Mm-hmm.
I was charmed by that because I was like, oh, this is a 75-year-old man who's looking for love after his wife passed away, and I kind of am very interested to see older love being portrayed on TV, which I feel like it so rarely is. Mm-hmm. And then what got me interested in this season of The Bachelorette was Jen was the lead. So actually, I didn't really know that much about how the show was set up, the types of editing they did. So even from the early episodes, because we watched an episode together when I was in Nashville when we were about to launch Pagebound. And I was I think falling really hard for the editing. I was very clearly hating who they wanted me to hate and liking who they wanted me to like. And you were much more skeptical, I think, because you have a little more experience than me with reality TV.
A little more. It's the only thing I watch.
Literally. Jennifer does work and she just has the Housewives constantly playing in the background.
I'm not even absorbing it. It's just in my subconscious at all times. It's the Housewives.
Right. So my first impression of the guys was pretty much what the producers wanted you to think, which was that Devin was a total asshole because of how he was treating the guys. And that actually Sam, who is the contractor that we both think is hot, he wasn't my favorite, but I liked him. His plot definitely 180'd by the time the second half of the show came around, and he definitely became the villain. And I was yeah, I can't believe I ever liked him. I feel very fooled. I feel like I'm in Jen's shoes. It is so hard to tell people's true intentions. In one of the episodes later on, she says, I pride myself in being someone who can generally read people. Mm-hmm. And then it's sad because obviously now we all know she was so wrong about so many people in so many ways. But it is so hard because again, maybe this is just the editing. And if I was face to face with these guys, I would be able to sniff out their bullshit better. But truly, I felt very on board with whatever the producers wanted me to feel and think the whole time. And so the twists and turns in their characters truly did feel twists and turns. I mean, towards the end, I was come on, girl. You can't see through this shit. Devin is clearly love bombing you. Don't trust this little weasel. I never liked Devin, but for a while they were trying to make him into a good guy. But anyway, I can go on and on. What are your thoughts and impressions of this season?
I've been kind of down on The Bachelor and The Bachelorette both recently because I've been watching those shows since I was in high school, right? So I feel like back in the day, it used to be more drama filled and like it felt more real. Now it feels just so overly produced that when I watch it, I can almost see the producers making the storylines as they happen. So it all feels so fake to me. And I never really got invested in any of the men. None of them were charming to me. None of them I was rooting for. I didn't see the love story blossoming with anybody. So I'm just like, I don't know who you're going to pick, Jen, because honestly, they all kind of blow. You don't seem to have a connection with anybody. It's just like, you got to pick one at the end
Mhm.
of the day. And it's been a long time since I felt like I've seen like a real love connection blossoming on The Bachelor or The Bachelorette. So I watch it more to be in the know with the culture.
Yeah. You didn't like Jonathan?
I did, but I didn't think that they liked each other. Like, I didn't think she liked
Yeah.
him. He was very sweet.
Like, they were very friendly and goofy.
Yes. Jonathan was the guy that is perfect on paper. There's nothing wrong with him, but like you feel bad that you don't feel the spark.
Oh.
That is Jonathan.
My impression is that now they're together. I don't know if that's real or not, but they're
Ooh.
definitely making TikToks together
Mm,
post all of this
interesting.
fallout from the show. Because I think he was the only one who I was like, by the end, there's nothing problematic about you. Like, clearly by the end, it's very clear he has feelings for her. I think you're right that I don't know if it's just a friend connection for her. She obviously didn't pick him, even though he was the best one. Like, I totally fell for him. I was like, he's a cutie. At that point, also, by the time I was watching the end of the season, I'd seen him come on my like For You page. And I was like, his TikToks are really cute. He seems really funny and authentic. So I'm a big Jonathan stan. I hope they work out if they're dating.
Yeah, he's definitely like the most pure-hearted one of the batch.
Yeah. Yeah, but I was surprised because, I think there's been 21 seasons of The Bachelorette, and there's only 4 couples out of all of that have made it. It's fascinating because obviously it's all about marriage and like forcing this long-term commitment, but it rarely works out. And I'm sure viewers at this point who do watch season after season kind of know it's not going to work out.
Mhm.
And so I guess they were just watching for the spectacle or watching for the journey.
Yeah, 100%.
I feel like the kind of people who sign up for this show, I mean, they have to say and like try to appear really genuine that they're really there for love.
Mhm.
But I think especially with this season, a lot of people were questioning the motivations of the guys on the show. And like if any of them were even remotely honestly interested in her, I guess there was this drama where like everybody thought that it was going to be a different person cast as the Bachelorette.
Mhm.
And like that's devastating to be Jen in that situation, like where you're already feeling like she got so much racist hate for being the lead of this franchise and then to be told multiple times throughout the show as guys are like bringing it up that they thought the Bachelorette was going to be either of these 2 other women who were both white.
Wait, she got racist hate?
Oh yeah, she got so much racist hate.
What was the hate?
People were literally like, "Oh, we want a Bachelorette with blue eyes and blonde hair." I mean, just the typical racist hate that still exists in America, yeah.
Who's say I'm
She posted a TikTok where she, like, had one of those comments. The person's name was blurred out, but that's what it said. And her, like, thing was, "And people tell me, like, racism doesn't exist in America."
huh.
Which is obviously racism does exist, but yeah.
Damn, that's wild.
There was so many challenges she had to face. And then also the fact that her love story didn't work out in such a tragic, horrible way that, like, Devin is literally the shittiest person on this earth. Like, I cannot believe you would propose to someone and then as soon as the cameras are off, turn into this whole different person and be ready to call it off in like 1 to 2 months.
Yeah. Ugh. Devin's a piece of trash, as they mostly are, but
Yeah.
the producers have a lot to do with that too. Which
Yeah, I mean, which is what I think we're going to get into in this conversation. So, I wanted to start by looking at the origins of modern reality TV. Most people are probably thinking Paris Hilton and The Simple Life or The Kardashians as the origins of reality TV, but it actually starts much earlier. So, there's 2 hallmarks to reality TV. The first is the feeling that it creates in the audience, which is voyeuristic, titillating, a little guilty, but also really inspires a lot of empathy. I think way more so than scripted television. You feel the emotions of rooting for someone or trying to predict what's going to happen and just feeling a lot more for the people in the cast because they're real people.
Mhm.
The second hallmark being the format, which we're all familiar with today, but at the time needed to be invented. And that is the filming of someone in real time, the confessional type interviews where people can spill what they're actually thinking or feeling, the editing, showing a scene play out, and then splicing in interviews of how people reacted. And so we're going to trace the history of both of these different hallmarks. For the first, which is the feeling it creates in the audience, I looked at an interview that author Emily Nussbaum did, and she wrote a book on the history of reality TV called Cue the Sun. She traces the roots of this reality TV feeling and audience back to the 1940s and these audience participation shows. So, this is a show like Candid Camera, which was a prank show that started on radio in the 20s, but when it moved to TV, and you could suddenly see a stranger's reaction to a prank captured in real time and like see them experience discomfort, frustration, fear, laughter. It created the same feelings in the audience and became really popular. Shows like Cops and America's Funniest Home Videos followed and tapped into a really similar emotional vein. In 1973, PBS set out to make this documentary called An American Family, and it was supposed to be a documentary about the Loud family living their lives in California. But when it was released, it actually was received more as reality TV because of the reactions the audience had to what they considered to be scandalous on that show, which was literally the mom asking for a divorce and the son being openly gay, which people had never seen on TV. In terms of the origins of reality TV as a format, the first show of this nature was The Real World in 1992. And it has a lot of the structures that are very familiar to us today. Like they cast a diverse group of strangers, they live together in a house that also becomes the set. The Real World invented this confessional interview style that now is ubiquitous in reality TV, and it actually ran for 33 seasons. So, the story behind The Real World was that the producers were super inspired by the documentary I just mentioned, An American Family, as well as shows that were really popular at the time, like Beverly Hills 90210 and Melrose Place. And they didn't have the budget to film a scripted show. So their concept was to take the themes from a show like 90210 and mash that up with documentary. And at first, they didn't want to direct the cast or refilm anything and just wanted to see how real life played out. But there wasn't anything happening, there was no drama. I read this New Yorker article that recounted how it felt at the time when they were making the show because it was a pilot. They were very much trying to get it sold. They didn't really know how this format should work. And there was actually a lot of disagreement amongst the cast and producers around how much prompting or intervention should be done. So the creators were like planting things. There was a model as one of the house members. He had done like a nude photo shoot in a magazine, like a risque photo shoot. And they like left that magazine on the kitchen table, laid open to try to like create drama, to create conflict. And then when the cast found it, they thought maybe that the model left it there to like show off or I don't know. And then the model was like, I didn't leave that there. And he got really, really upset and like looked basically directly into the camera at the producers and was like, did you leave this here?
Oh my God.
Yeah. So it became this really big tension between like the cast and the crew. Ultimately, I think as we know now, the legacy of reality TV, what won out, and it was actually more intervention on the part of the producers. After The Real World, Survivor premieres in 2000, and Emily Nussbaum credits Survivor with turning this format that The Real World pioneered into an industry because Survivor was the first highly rated and profitable reality show. Like when The Real World came out, the initial reviews were really bad. There's this quote that I thought was so funny. Watching The Real World, which fails as a documentary, too phony, and as entertainment, too dull. It's hard to tell who's using who more. Whereas Survivor, even today, it's incredibly popular. It's on its 46th season. And actually in 2024, among adults 18 to 49, it was this year's top rated entertainment series.
I didn't even know it was still on air.
Yeah, Survivor had all the elements of the drama of this cast of characters, but they also brought in game show elements, prank show elements. And like obviously now, reality TV, there's so many branches, right? Like there's Cake Wars or Chopped, all those competition shows. There's the reality TV family, like the Kardashians, which aired in 2007. I'm a big Kardashians fan.
They aired in 2007?
Yes.
Wow, that was so
yes.
long ago.
And the show was really different back then. I started watching later in life, so I didn't watch in 2007, but I have seen their first season, and it's really, really, really different. I much prefer the current format, I gotta say. I gotta say, I like watching them be rich and beautiful and famous.
They weren't rich and beautiful and famous in season 1?
No, no, they were just like a normal family.
Really?
I mean, they were like obviously above average wealthy. Yeah, 100%. They were privileged, but no, they were very normal. Like Kylie and Kendall were going to school and they all lived in the same house. It's not like they all had mansions. Kim and Chloe and Courtney owned a boutique. They were like working and like
So wild.
normal-ish lives, yeah. And then your show, The Real Housewives, premiered in 2006.
Mm.
Have you been watching it since then?
No, 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 this is a very recent phenomena for me, like,
Okay.
2020 is when I got into it, but I do know that it was Orange County. Real Housewives of
Yeah.
Orange County was the first one, and I did try to watch that very first season, and I couldn't do
Yeah.
it. It's so different. It was just so boring, nothing happens.
Yeah, I feel like now reality TV is morphed into kind of a whole different beast. So Love Island premiered in 2015. This was in the UK. And I started getting into reality TV also in 2020 with the pandemic. Sounds like it's probably also what triggered you.
Yeah.
But I was living in Kenya at the time and like watching Too Hot to Handle was my first reality TV show ever.
Wow, that's diving into the deep end.
I basically watched that and then I got into Love Island because it's Too Hot to Handle is based on Love Island.
Mhm.
That's what I thought reality TV was more, which was like more about sex, frankly, like more about the sexy people on screen or whatever. And yeah, there's some drama, but also everyone's in a bikini every day. And like that's part of why people watch. It wasn't until like more recently actually that I got into the Love is Blind or got into the more like, okay, I'm here for the love story, less about just like something pretty on screen.
Mhm.
Nowadays, the reality TV that all of us are watching and addicted to, it is much more about drama, about the look. Like everybody has the same look.
Everyone has Instagram face for sure.
Right.
Yeah, the modern reality TV shows definitely are not just a set it and forget it documentary style at all. There's so much psychology, planning, scripting that goes into whether it be like The Housewives, Love is Blind, The Bachelor. It is a tightly run production and they're manipulating the shit out of everybody on screen. So, just to give us a little idea of how the casting even works, which I found this really interesting. I thought, at the end of The Bachelor or The Bachelorette, where it's like, are you ready to be our next contestant? Sign up here at ABC.
Yeah, yeah.
They don't actually take anybody from those castings. It's a whole facade, it's a farce. They maybe take like one or two people that sign up organically.
Oh,
Same thing with Love is Blind. They'll go and have like actual castings for Love is Blind, but only take a few people. There's casting producers, and they actually go on Instagram and source contestants through Instagram. They also source contestants through people who have agents. So, underground actors and models who are trying to make a name, they'll actually start working with the casting producers just to get them some visibility. I think that's a lot of where this "are you here for the right reasons" thing comes into play in
uh-huh.
all of these reality TV shows. I was reading a Reddit thread where people were talking about Love is Blind in, I think it was Houston, how they were getting reached out to from casting producers. They had never signed up for the show, never had any interaction with the show. And a lot of these people even only had a few hundred followers. They were not famous at all. And the theories were that the casting producers want real people. So if you're signing up for the show, you're immediately there for clout and you can only have so many people like that. But you actually get better drama when you just have these randos that you pluck off the street who just agree to go.
Interesting. How are they even finding these people with 100 followers?
Apparently, they go through the geotags of the city that they're supposed to be in and then just look for singles. Like, they'll go into the bar geotags and try to, like, follow people who seem to be single and going out a lot.
Interesting. And then you get like a DM in your Insta.
Yeah.
I would think people would think that would be spam.
Well, that's what a
That's
lot of these people on the
crazy.
Reddit thread were saying. They thought it was spam, and then they followed up with it, and it was completely real.
And like, you don't get anything, right? So like, they have to basically convince you to do this if you didn't reach out initially, and you're just like, oh, someone reached out to me. I guess I will consider getting married on TV. That seems crazy.
Yeah, exactly. No, it is really crazy. There was a story that I read about a blogger from Salt Lake City. She was an ex-Mormon blogger. Reality TV producers reached out to her. They were trying to make a new show about literally ex-Mormon bloggers, which is very niche. I was like, I don't know. But
Yeah.
I think that is actually airing right now.
Yeah. Well, during The Bachelorette, they had played a clip of that.
Yeah, I wonder if it's the same one. So anyway, she was reached out to and she thought it would be interesting. So she started talking to the producers and they were like, well, do you have any blogger friends? Can we start talking to your community? And she got like 3 or 4 blogger friends together, and all was going well, except for when the producer started asking them about who their enemies were. Like, "Who are your frenemies? Is this person an airhead? Like, who do you really dislike?" And
Mhm.
the girls were like, "We don't wanna talk about that because it's gonna cause beef in our real life. It's just not worth it to us." And the producers literally said to her, "Well, we need to make a storyline, so if you're not gonna be upfront about this, we can't make a show with you." And she declined.
That's real, though. I'm glad they said that to her clearly. That is totally what you're signing up for.
Exactly. I mean, it is the reality of it, but it just shows you how much thought goes into the casting of it. It isn't just random people. You gotta find people that have beef with each other. That's exactly how the housewives are cast. These are people
Mhm.
who kind of know each other, but there's going to be some tension. Like, they can't just be completely random. They've never seen each other before. So once we get our mosaic of contestants here who kind of have beef with each other, maybe just randos plucked off the streets, now we need to make the drama actually happen. So the way producers tend to do this is by creating a completely unstable environment that makes the contestants highly emotional. First, what they do is they gain the contestants' trust and they become their go to confidant. Usually, each contestant will have one point of contact producer who they get really close to. And while not all of their interactions are going to be filmed, when they do go into those one on one situations, they feel so at ease with this producer that they're talking to
Mm,
that they start just spilling. They'll say things that they probably wouldn't to just a random producer. They're just like talking to their best friend at this point.
yeah.
The producers get to know them so well that they can start manipulating the situation around them. And they'll even film them talking about personal traumas, childhood issues, like past exes, just to get them emotional and crying. And then they'll splice that into certain scenes to make it seem like it was a more heightenedly emotional scene than it actually was.
Wow.
Yes.
That's so interesting. I've heard that, like, with this splicing point, you know how, like, on Love is Blind or Too Hot to Handle, they use those glasses that are solid in color, like, you can't see the liquid
Hmm.
inside? I thought that was because of some licensing thing, like, maybe they didn't wanna promote a certain brand of alcohol without that brand paying them, but yeah, it's actually for the splicing.
Yeah. You don't want to see the levels of the liquid go up and down. Well,
That's
it's always so
crazy.
funny when you see that because you'll see one scene where the girls I actually saw this a lot in Jen's season where, like, her hair was perfectly curled in some scenes, and then it was spliced against one where it was more fallen, and you're just like, "This was clearly hours apart from each other."
I love that you noticed that, and I did not
You
notice
didn't
it at
notice that? Oh
all.
my gosh, I noticed that
No.
stuff immediately. She had a bunch of scenes too where her face was, like, red and there was lipstick on her mouth from making out with somebody, and then the next second it was, like, perfect, and then the next second after that it was, like, fucked up again. You're just like, "Okay, there's a lot of splicing going on here." So, yeah, in addition to becoming their confidants, they actually make the environment itself, like, highly emotionally charged with alcohol and sleep deprivation and cutting them out from the outside world. So, contestants from every reality TV show have said they've been encouraged to drink insane levels of alcohol, that they were not fed adequate amounts of food while filming super long hours, and they weren't allowed to have their phones or text the outside world. So their world becomes the reality TV show. So everything
Mhm.
feels more important than it actually is. Plus, you're intoxicated. Plus, you haven't eaten. Plus, you're sleep deprived.
Yeah.
Shit's about to blow up. It's just bound to. This actually has led to some issues for the reality TV shows themselves and the producers because there's quite a few lawsuits happening in the past few years because of how bad the conditions have been. For instance, Leah from Real Housewives of New York, she is in the later seasons. She's an alcoholic. She's very upfront about it. She's gone to rehab. She is suing Bravo because she said that the producers encouraged her to relapse, were feeding her alcohol.
Oh,
And then when she told the producers that her sobriety was really important to her for the next season, they cut her from the show. When it comes to Love is Blind, Jeremy Hartwell, I think he was from season 5, he and a few other contestants from different Netflix reality TV shows, they got together and did a class action lawsuit against Netflix saying they weren't paid correctly for their time on the show because they were being filmed for like 15 hours a day and getting paid like $10,000 for the entire season. So it turned out to be like less than $2 or something per hour, which is far below California's minimum wage laws. And they actually got a settlement. Jeremy himself got a settlement for $1.4 million from
wow.
Netflix. Yes. What gets a little tricky here is the producers do so much manipulation, but they have gag orders on every single contestant. So when they get out, they're not allowed to talk about their experience. And one contestant of Love is Blind, she was in the last season and her storyline got cut. You watched the last season of Love is Blind, right?
Yeah.
She was the blonde girl who would be like in the group get togethers, but they never actually showed her storyline. So there ended up being some sort of abuse happening in the relationship. So they had to cut her storyline completely. And she was telling producers that she felt unsafe and they weren't listening to her. So she came out and started publicly talking about it. And Love is Blind sued her for $4 million for breaking the NDA.
Wow.
And so she's trying to countersue because she's like, I got paid $8,600 for this, and now you're suing me for $4 million. And I actually was unsafe during this entire process. It just goes to show how much control they have over you when you're there. And of course, you're
Yeah.
going to be highly emotional and you're going to cry and you're going to be upset about things that wouldn't actually upset you in the real world. And thus the drama blooms. So, no, it is not reality.
Yeah. Ugh, it's so hard because I think on some level, like everybody watching reality TV knows it's not reality, but then they 100% castigate the cast for behaving the way they do. They judge them hardcore, and I think it follows them throughout their lives after on the show because even if you know, okay, like it was edited, this person got the villain edit, you still see that person literally saying those words. You literally see them behaving that way, and I think you're like, "Oh, well, it must be somewhat true or like somewhat a part of their personality."
Yeah, 100%. One thing that always makes it so clear that the environment is messed up to me is when you look at the early episodes of The Bachelor or The Bachelorette when there's like 25 contestants still and they're doing the final rose ceremonies and they have to get through 25 people. And by the time they leave, it's like daylight out and they started and like the sun was setting. So you're like, wow, these people were literally up all night. They're only getting alcohol. They're like drunk, sleep deprived. And of course, they're going to cry when they leave. Like, of course.
You're like, "I would cry just because 'cause I'm tired."
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Oh, wild. I think that incentives are so misaligned because at this point, producers know what sells. A lot of times when you look these producers up on LinkedIn, their whole resume is working at like all these different shows and like they use the same techniques at The Housewives as they do The Bachelorette, right? So it's a business where creating drama is what attracts eyeballs and they're definitely using psychological tactics on both the cast and the audience watching.
I found a TV clinical psychologist, which I did not know that was a title
Oh,
somebody could have.
you're always finding these people with interesting, very specific jobs.
I think I actually referenced another TV psychologist in
Yeah,
another
in the true
episode.
crime episode,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So this is Dr. Marianne Trent from the UK, and she looks a lot at Love Island for her research.
Okay.
So her theory for why everyone loves reality TV is that we mirror what's happening on the screen. It's a way for us to vent and emote. Like if something good is happening and we see people falling in love on screen, oxytocin is actually released in our body. If something intense is happening on screen, cortisol and adrenaline are released. And since these are real people and we, in our imagination, feel like it's actually reality, the sensation is heightened compared to a
Hmm.
scripted drama.
Okay, I'm glad there's actual science behind that because when I said that earlier, I was like, I don't know if that's true. I just
And it
feel
is
like
true.
people feel more emotions when it comes to reality TV.
Yeah, no, they do. And she says that it can be a way of venting your frustrations, perhaps by shouting at the TV or discussing complicated things with the person you're watching TV with. It can help you process and realize things you may have been through or are going through, overall, helping you make sense of life. Again, referencing Love Island, she says it holds up a mirror to the relationships and dynamics in our own lives so that we
Hmm.
can start analyzing them by proxy through the relationships and dynamics that we're seeing on TV. And this made me think of our couples therapy episode when we were watching Orna therapize the couples, and it sparked a lot of introspection into our own lives and relationships. And that seems to be like a pretty universal experience.
I also thought of that, but then it's funny because Orna like specifically talks about how they're not trying to make a reality TV show and like not trying to manipulate anything, you know? I look at that show, I'm like, the fact that I know it's not manipulated and it feels so much true, like, I do think makes me reflect on my own relationships. But I certainly do not watch Too Hot to Handle. And I'm like, oh, what can I learn from this? I feel like part of the appeal is that they feel so different from me that it feels more like entertainment than like
Hmm.
a chance for me to self reflect.
Yeah, it feels like a sociological or anthropological exercise. And that's how I feel about the housewives. Like I have nothing in common with the housewives, but I
Right.
watch it, I see their dynamics play out, and I'm like, I can analyze it. I have opinions. I like people. I dislike people. I'm like, that person's a snake. That person fucking rocks. And you just form these opinions. It's a psychological exercise for sure. The other piece of this that makes reality TV so fun for everybody is there's this collective tribal element to it because reality TV has such rabid fan bases that there's podcasts, you see it on TikTok, it's on Reddit, and people do have such strong opinions doing that psychological analysis that it's like the water cooler chat of the internet often.
Mm.
But Dr. Marian Trent warns that overconsumption can lead to emotional burnout and anxiety. So it actually has pretty significant negative psychological impact that the government in the UK has started getting involved with the advertisements that are being
What?
shown during Love Island. Yeah. So they conducted a study, and 1 in 4 young people say that reality TV makes them worry about their body image.
Ah,
And
okay.
the problem here is that the contestants are beautiful, they're fit, and they fit this mold. They're not very diverse. Everyone kind of looks the same. And like we were mentioning before, the plastic surgery, the Instagram face, people think that they should look like that because they see a whole universe of people looking like that and think that that's reality. And so, especially teenagers and women in their young 20s are starting to have like really bad body image issues directly related to Love Island specifically. And so, adverts for cosmetic surgery during broadcasts of Love Island were banned last year because they were following complaints that they painted a false image of perfection and exacerbated young people's insecurities. For this next year, they're going to start limiting dieting products and not allowing them to be advertised during Love Island as well.
Wow. They're obviously cast because they fit a certain beauty standard. But then on top of it, often a lot of the conversation is also about how people look.
Yeah.
People are pretty brutal with the way they judge people's looks. Like everyone is clearly attractive, and yet within that attractive group, I feel like Too Hot to Handle is like they're always trying to trade up for the next hottest person entering the group or entering the villa. Even amongst all these hot people, there's one person deemed the hottest that everybody wants. And then everyone else is just kind of a reject. And
Yeah.
even those hot people, probably their psychology is not great because they're thinking they're not hot in this like
Yeah,
isolated environment they're in. That's probably why they
totally.
all look the same because they all are like the one hot girl when I go back, like get fillers or whatever to look like her.
Yeah. And I think the body image thing in particular is so prominent because that is the thing that people talk about when they're talking about if somebody's hot. They're not saying like, "Oh, she has such a pretty face." They're like, "She has a rockin' bod." They're like, "Everyone's in a bikini."
Yeah, this is our third episode where you've done an accent, by the way. So we need to keep it going.
All right, bingo, checkbox.
Third in a row.
So, yeah, the negative psychological impacts extend just beyond the viewers, though. And I did not know this, but I was really saddened to hear that there have actually been quite a few cases of contestants committing suicide after leaving the
Wow, I
shows.
didn't know that.
2 people committed suicide after going on Love Island. And there was another reality TV show in the UK that I hadn't heard of before, but there were reportedly 3 to 4
Oh my
people,
gosh.
and they couldn't directly link it to being on the show, but obviously these are high percentages versus the general population. So very, very sad stuff.
That's horrible.
I think moral of the story here is know that it's not reality. It is very scripted. So don't compare yourself to these people. And there's this quote that I read recently that I love it. It's like, don't compare your inside to somebody else's outside.
Aw.
That's the moral of the story for reality TV from me.
Thank you for the wisdom, Jennifer. But yeah, these shows do have an outsized impact on our culture because so many people tune in. I was curious just seeing the growth and the sheer quantity of these shows, what the viewership numbers actually are and how they've changed over time. So I looked at the Bachelor franchise in particular, and I was actually surprised to find that viewership has been trending down over the last 20 years. So in season 1 of The Bachelorette, there was 16.7 million viewers. This was in 2003. And The Bachelor was pretty steady between 10 and 15 million all throughout the early 2000s. And then recent years, viewership is at 2 to 3 million for both The Bachelor
Hmm.
and The Bachelorette. This doesn't include streaming numbers because those numbers are not released to the public. Hulu now obviously does have The Bachelor Bachelorette the day after. So I'm sure there's viewers watching, like me, for example, through that channel. So
Yep.
I do think that that's kind of skewed. It would be much more of a full picture if we did have the streaming numbers. And then if you look at overall reality TV numbers, in 2010, reality TV made up 1/3 of the top 50 US TV shows. And now it's only 12%. So
Hmm.
you are seeing these trends. Like, it's not just that people don't like The Bachelor or Bachelorette anymore, it's throughout reality TV. Again, this is on broadcast TV. So my assumption is that a lot of that has moved to streaming. And while streamers generally don't publish numbers for specific shows, Netflix usually does like a year in recap of their most watched shows. And this is in viewing hours. So it's not quite apples to apples, but Netflix did report that last year, Love is Blind and Physical 100 were among the top 20 most watched shows from January to June.
Physical 100?
Yeah, you don't know what that is?
No.
Oh my gosh. It's so good. This will get us into our conversation about Korean reality TV. But
Mhm.
Physical 100 is like they take 100 people who play different sports and are different levels of athleticism. And the goal is to find what is the ideal, quote unquote, human body, like the
Oh.
most fit.
Does it have to do with aesthetics or is it purely
It has
like
nothing to do with
ability?
aesthetics. So it's about like strength, speed, agility. So
Wow.
you have everyone from like a figure skater to a power lifter to like a lot of people who do CrossFit, a lot of people who are like on the Korean Olympic teams doing different sports. And it's entirely in Korean and it's subtitled, but it's so popular. I love it. You should totally watch it. It's so good. And it's also very wholesome. I love competition shows where people are actually nice to each other and they like
Mhm.
support one another.
Yeah.
And I think this happens in like US competition shows too, like Next in Fashion. Have you seen that?
No, I thought I was like a reality TV aficionado, but now I'm questioning myself.
I think these are considered reality TV, but in my mind, I never thought of them as reality TV. Like to my mind, these are competition shows. It's
Yeah,
not the
there is a
same.
difference. Like, I think
Yeah,
the dating reality TV, even though it's a
right.
competition show, it's like its own subgenre, but like I wouldn't consider Chopped a reality TV show.
I agree. I mean, yes, you're watching like some simulacrum of reality, but it's not about the drama between the characters, right?
Oh my god, we just said simulacrum on the
I know, I
pod.
learned that from Bingetopia. Thank you, Bingetopia. These like
Oh my
25-year-olds
god.
educating me here. Like Next in Fashion, yes, you're watching the designers compete with each other, but they're so nice to each other. Even when they lose, they're like, I'm so glad you won. And I love that. Like, I don't like the cutthroat stuff. And like Physical 100 is that too. People are getting beat up because some of the challenges are like literally wrestling, like very, very physical things. And everyone's just like, go, it's okay, you're strong in the background. It's very sweet. When consuming American and like also British reality TV, I have noticed there's so many similarities and like a lot of these same problematic threads throughout all of these TV shows. But for me, it really seems like such a contrast to when I've watched East Asian reality TV. I don't know how much you've been exposed to this world, but
None. Educate me.
so there's this show called Singles Inferno. When I heard of the show, I was like, oh, it's going to be the Korean version of Love Island. And it kind of is like they are on a tropical island. They're very isolated. And the concept of the show is there's a set number of girls and guys, and occasionally new people will enter the villa, just like Love Island. And the goal is to pair off. So if both people want to be paired with each other, then they get to go to Paradise, which is a luxury hotel, and they get to leave this island. So this island is supposed to be kind of, I mean, it's supposed to be run down. It seems like glamping, but it's supposed to be run down. They need to like cook their own food
Oh,
or
God
whatever.
forbid.
Yeah. Versus Paradise, which is like they get their own suite in a hotel and get to order room service and go to the pool and kind of relax. So the concept, I was like, okay, it seems very similar. Like I kind of know what I'm getting myself into. And they're also casting very attractive people. Like definitely they fit the Korean beauty standard. But the show is so incredibly different. Clearly what society values, you can like see it all over the show and what the difference is between like American values. The types of women that do really well in the show are like women who are more demure and cutesy. I mean, I didn't even plan this TikTok blowing up while I talked about this, but like literally that. And even though they're on a beach and like sometimes they're wearing swimsuits and doing water activities or whatever, it is not sexualized as much
Hmm.
as American TV. So like when they're in the pool together, usually the woman is wearing like a cover up. You never see just her body in a bikini. Like she's in the water and you can only see her like head up.
Wow.
There's definitely no mention of sex. There's very little kissing. Like holding hands is like drama. Holding hands is like, wow, they're holding hands as they're going to paradise.
Wow, it's so wholesome.
Yeah, when they're spending the night in paradise, the guy will like sleep in a different bed if there's two beds, or they'll bring in a cot for him if it's just one bed. Yeah, so it's
Oh
just
my
like
god.
totally, totally different. Like it's very demure, very mindful. And I was like, oh, this show, it's so weird to have seen the American versions where it literally feels like the same concept, but then just take a whole different culture and like how they would interpret that. But it's very, very addicting. Like the Koreans know how to make pop music, good movies. And I think it totally translates. There's just as much intrigue drama in this much more like modest perspective that they're displaying.
Yeah. I can't believe that they're able to like produce enough drama and intrigue to keep it entertaining
Mhm.
though.
The casting process is pretty different too. So the people on Singles Inferno are very impressive. They have doctors, athletes, pianists on the show, and they even had a Korean American Harvard student and the former Miss Korea.
Wow.
So I think being on a reality TV show is seen as much more of a prestigious thing in Korea. Another example of East Asian reality TV differing from Western is this show called Terrace House in Japan, which, like the real world, it's a group of strangers that live together in a house. I don't watch the show myself, but I watched this YouTube video talking about it, and the words that they were using to describe it were like simple, warm, cozy, humble, which I don't think anyone would use any of those words to describe American reality TV.
No.
The philosophy behind Terrace House is it is okay if nothing happens. We are reality TV for people who hate reality TV. We are literally just filming these people living their lives day to day,
Hmm.
focusing on the minutia. And people absolutely still get addicted to Terrace House. And like there's been multiple seasons and people follow the cast and whatnot, but there's literally no drama.
I wonder if it just becomes like a comfort show for people. Like they get to know
Yeah.
the characters, like they get to know the vibes, and you just like put it on in the background. you know?
Yeah, maybe it's like Gilmore Girls for me. Yeah. I just think it's so interesting that that is considered reality TV, right? And like the format is like so different than these like American shows, which are really trying to create the extremes of emotion, both in the cast, but also trying to invoke that in the audience. And here,
Yeah.
you just have this entirely different format that feels just nice. It feels warm and fuzzy when you watch it. Like even when I watch Physical 100, I like watching them compete and I like watching them do the physical challenges, but I also like how it makes me feel. It makes me feel like we're all a team and like we're all in this together.
Hmm.
I mean, I don't want to paint a total one sided view of this. I'm not saying that all East Asian reality TV fits this mold. Interestingly enough, I learned of this a while ago from a podcast episode on This American Life, but one of the earliest reality TV shows ever started in Japan in 1998, and it definitely had a sinister side. So the show itself was called Susunu Denpa Shonen, and it had a specific segment called Sweepstakes Life. And it's kind of wild. I'm going to describe it to you, and I've truly never heard anything
Wait.
like this. Do you know about this?
I'm not going to steal your thunder, but I think I have an inkling of what it might be.
Okay, so it starts like a lot of reality TV shows. There's a bunch of people auditioning. One person wins. It's kind of unclear what they're auditioning for, but the guy who wins, his name is Nasubi. He is 22 and he's a comedian. Nasubi means eggplant in Japanese. It's like a nickname he got because he has a long face. And
Is that why? Just kidding.
the producers tell him that they have this idea for a show and we don't even know if it'll go to air, but if it does go to air, like you're going to be famous, you'll be a star. The producers blindfold him, put him in a car, and take him to somewhere else. And they tell him to strip. He finds himself in this small apartment. He does strip. He sees a pillow. So he grabs that and like holds it over his groin and then looks around. And all he sees are just magazines on top of a coffee table. There's nothing else in this room. And the producers tell him that from now on, if he wants food, clothes, or anything else, he will have to win them by entering sweepstakes in these magazines. And he gets a stack of postcards to send in for the prize drawings. And he will only be freed from the apartment after he wins 1,000,000 yen or $10,000 worth of prizes. Until then, he isn't allowed any outside contact with the world. And he's given tapes and like a little camera to basically film himself. And they will pick up the tapes once a day. And then they leave. And he has never signed a contract, but he's in this room naked. And he does do it. He literally starts to apply for these sweepstakes and he has no food. He's literally starving because
I was
obviously
going to say,
applying to sweepstakes takes a long time and is not realistic.
yeah, what the fuck? How
Yeah.
is he surviving?
He gets really, really skinny. Like
Oh,
you
that's
can
so
see that he's starving. Absolutely. And it's like
that's
very,
torture.
very problematic. And he doesn't even know that, like, he's doing the tapes and he's doing what the producers told him to do, but he doesn't know that he's actually being broadcast because he's just in this room with no outside contact.
Yeah. This is a Black Mirror episode.
It's literally insane that this happened to this poor man. And he enters the sweepstakes. Eventually, he like does get food. He wins like a bag of rice and he wins some juice and he's able to like survive. But he's obviously mentally struggling and kind of falling apart because he's entirely alone and he's only doing this thing. Meanwhile, everybody in Japan is watching. They're loving it. And for context, in the US, Game of Thrones usually has around 9 million viewers. Nasubi had 16 million viewers in a country less than half the size of ours.
Oh my God.
So it is ubiquitous. Like, everybody knows him. They think he is the funniest comedian they've ever seen. For them, it's like entertainment.
And they probably think he's in on it.
Yeah, or for some reason, they don't think it's problematic. Yeah, I don't know. If I saw that, even if I was like, this guy signed up for it, like he's literally naked, he's suffering, he's starving, I would be like, what the hell?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be comfortable watching that. But yeah, no, people are watching it. The whole story is like, I'm not going to go into it, but it's fascinating. I'll link the This American Life episode where they interview him and like tell the whole story. But I just wanted to highlight that it's not. I mean, he reflects on this too, which is like when he finally gets out, he says, the entire nation had been watching me for 15 months. And, to be honest, I thought, well, what the hell? What is my country coming to?
Holy shit. Did he sue?
No, he did not. In the podcast interview, the interviewer was saying like it felt like he was really working hard to turn this traumatic experience into something positive. Because like you kind of have to, right? I just don't even know how you live
it's a
with that.
survival mechanism.
Yeah.
That's the most insane reality TV story there is, I think. I don't think anything tops that.
Yeah. I mean, this would not fly today, but in 1998,
no, that is
this
torture.
happened. Yeah.
That's absolutely insane. I was just thinking, would I even want to watch it now knowing the story? But I don't even think I'd want to see a clip, honestly.
No.
It would just
Yeah.
make me feel bad.
I didn't expect that to get so dark. I mean, I feel like we started off so lighthearted, excited to chat about Jen and her story. And this is where we ended, which is like both you and I had like these really dark findings about reality TV and like what can happen if you just like try to exploit real people who they're not an actor. This is their real life.
The highs and lows of reality TV, reality podcasting. You're going to get some lighthearted moments and some dark moments.
Right. Our show is not scripted.
Not scripted.
Yes. Sometimes we end up in places like this one.
No, but I love reality TV so much. I love taking it seriously as a topic because it is so meaty. It's so psychological. And I think people who look at it as just fluff TV, it's bullshit, are missing out on so much. I love taking the unserious seriously. And it's frankly just an uneducated opinion to think reality TV is stupid. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, especially after all this lovely deep dive and psychological analysis we did.
Yes.
So just point them to our podcast episode if they have doubts about the merits of reality TV.
Yeah, send your husbands, send your skeptical friends. Well, thanks, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys. Bye. If you enjoy the pod, we would love for you to give us a follow and rate us on Apple Podcasts, which helps us get the word out and reach new listeners. Full transcripts and show notes are available on Patreon, where if you choose to become a patron, you'll also get access to bonus content, our monthly book club, and our eternal gratitude.
If you'd like to get in touch or suggest a topic for a future episode, email us at everythingiknowabouttpod@gmail.com or DM us across all socials at EikaPod, that's EIKA pod. Thanks for listening and see you next week.